Get a job?
No, just teaching a senior yoga class on Friday.
Oh, that's good. That's interesting.
Doctor.
Okay. Yes, we gotta do that, right? Well, congratulations and hello everyone. Thank you for coming Friday morning, and thank you for coming. Well, this very important day. There's just FYI, hello. There's a protest happening in front of University Hall about the tuition hike. And we increased the tuition so much, huh? Over the past 3 years, at least, especially. So if you're interested in the topic, check online, go there. Yeah, I got checked too. Like security people are there, and like, you actually work here? Like, do you actually work here? Like, yes, we do. Anyway, but that was an interesting dynamic. So if you ever wanna, if you have some time after the class, or even in the class, you know what? If you go there, I'll give you a lecture video. Seriously. You know, so. But maybe it's fitting to talk about social influences, protests, you know, social influences, trying to persuade, trying to advocate. So that's type of social influence. And this is where we stopped last class. When we were talking about how can we even possibly persuade other people, your potential clients, customers, whatnot, without actually doing these things, eliminating their choices or introducing extrinsic rewards, motivations like rewards, punishments, so on and so forth. And we watched this video. So if you weren't there last class, I recommend you watch this video, or you can, you know, ask me the last lecture recording. And this is, what is this video about? The stairs experiment, remember? Piano, yeah. So there's a stair and escalator. A lot of people take escalators, obviously. Hey, Jordan. And then people wanted to, engineers, urban planners wanted people to use the stairs, right? For health's sake and whatnot. So they put actually some sort of like sensor on the each stair. So if you step on it, it make a music, sound, basically. And a lot of people, and it was fun. A lot of people started to actually take the stairs, right? And that's what they call the fun theory, the power of fun. And that's what the idea is. They didn't change anything. They didn't eliminate their choice, people's choice. There was an escalator, right? But still, by making the other side fun, alternative fun, they could sort of navigate people's behavior. And that is a theory and a phenomenon that's getting more and more common, not just in psychology, but behavioral economics as well. And it's called a nudge. So we use it in a very much management context, sometimes marketing context. That we quickly learn that we tell people to, hey, do this, like buy this. People do not. When you say don't do this, you don't. Instead, not just the idea that people look at the architecture or the environment. It could be digital, it could be physical, like escalator example, or social environment where people make choice to do or not to do, or would choose which behavior, which options, right? Look at that architecture environment and change some aspect of it in such a way that will actually guide people to choose a certain behavior in a predictable way. So going back to the staircase example, they put the piano one, knowing that that would be more fun and people would choose the stairs more that way, right? In a predictable way, without forbidding, that's the key, without forbidding, hey Yang, or without significantly changing the economic consequences of those choices, such as, for example, you know what? We're gonna start charging you $50 to use the escalator. Yeah, that's bogus. We're gonna take a stairs, but that's prohibiting. We're not doing that. That's not nudge. Nudge is about there's a stair. You can escalator. You can still choose it without a free or without anything. But then the other side is fun. Nudge must be easy to do. Well, that one was quite a bit actually challenge, but anyway. Nudge is not a mandate, right? Once again, it's not forbidding. It's just designing the pathway in such a way that people naturally just go this way rather than the other way that you don't want people to go. And that could apply to our field in different ways as well. When we want to promote certain behavior, we want to promote certain programs, for example, so on and so forth. So think about it, nudge. So the persuasion in today's society has radically changed. And maybe you have seen some example in your life, right? When you're shopping online, you're actually getting nudged one way or another, whether you recognize it or not, right? On a social media, you see the ads and they're actually nudging you one way or another. Today's persuasion don't tell you necessarily to do this, do that, but it's the nudge, you creating an environment that we're guided to certain direction. Now, today we wanted to spend quite a bit of time on this one, conformity. Have you had conformity in your life? Have you confirmed in your life? It's about changing the behavior due to real or imagined pressure. There's a pressure, and we're trying to typically fit in, right? My conformity story would be, I played golf when I was 5 years old. And then I hit it, the fact that I played golf for like so long, 2 years when I was a kid. Why? Because it was considered to be old people's sport. I didn't want to tell that. I wanted to fit in. Hairstyle, right? We conform. We follow the fashion or the fashion, like actual clothes. One person started to wear certain things and everybody is wearing the same thing, kind of thing. That's part of the conformity. And there are 3 reasons the chapter talked about why do we want to be social psychologically speaking, we want to conform sometimes. Well, first, to be liked. Maybe you have a group of friends and you want to conform, like, it's very, let's say, physically active group. You want to conform to that group dynamics because you want to be liked. And dating example, and well, it's kind of conformity too, but it's a one person, so I don't know that's a best example. But sometimes we want to be right ethically, or we want to be perceived. We want to believe that we want right, and we want to think that other people are thinking that you're right, right? You're at the camp, you don't want to throw the garbage out like anywhere, right? Because there are other campers, and probably those campers are environmentally friendly. They're very aware of those issues. So if you throw it out, people will be like, why you're doing that, right? You shouldn't be doing that. You should take the garbage back to the place. So you would try to do that. Not necessarily because you personally value environments per se. That would be different. The third one the chapter talked about is to belong. Maybe you go on a family trip, not necessarily because you like that destination or the fact that going on a trip with a family per se, it could be stressful sometimes, right? Spending a lot of time with family, things could happen. But also, that's part of belonging. You don't want to miss out, later on. People are, your family, you're talking about that, cool experiences, and you want to be part of that too. You want to be part of that too. Now, the last one I added, but I think the biggest reason of conformity is that you don't want to stand out. To belong, that's different from to belong, because to belong is typically we have a specific group that we know of, right? Family, group of friends, or certain community like university community that we somehow know and we affiliate to an extent so that we want to belong and belong more. But then not to stand out happens anywhere, even with the random crowd of people. Because, for example, I bet you don't want to just stand up right now and sing the national anthem right now, because that will make you stand out. That will make you stand out, right? Not fit in. Really difficult things to do. People stare at you, right? You don't want to have that feeling. So sometimes this too. Now, the chapter talks about this effect that sometimes we don't confirm just by choosing something and doing stuff, but also not doing it when other people are equally not doing things. And that's called, bystander effect, typically. Well, especially when that behavior is helping others. Have you heard about bystander effect? Probably. That's a pretty common phenomenon, right? Common terminology. So it's a failing to help other people, someone who is in need when other people around you are equally not helping. Let's say, let's use me. Let's say something happened in this perfectly safe classroom and I need help. And if nobody helps at all, then let's say Kirsten goes like, should I help Shin? Or maybe not. This phenomenon, I'm pretty sure Kirsten is going to help me for sure in reality, but sorry, example. But this idea and phenomena, it does happen, and it becomes very sensational on major social issue in 1964. If you read the chapter 8, this is an interesting chapter, by the way. This case has been described in detail. There's a woman called Kitty Genovese, probably Italian background too. She was living in New York City. And one night, she was chased by a man and stabbed and killed on a street. That's horrible instance. But what makes it more horrible is that later, New York Times reported 38 people at least were actually watching that incident from apartments. You know, it's in New York City, so it's like high rise, right? Tiny street. So there were lights in the apartment. It was late, but it was not like 4 a.m. And nobody seems to actually care. Nobody seems to report. And that really scared the entire society. And that, are we living in this society where nobody cares, nobody helps anymore? So that if you get into the trouble, then nobody's going to help you? Originally, this phenomena, and it, well, sort of did happen. Originally, it was explained by this sense of diffused sense of responsibility. That, for example, if I'm in trouble here, right, and we have what? At least 30 people here. Jenna may think that, you know what? Maybe Natalia is going to help, or somebody else is going to help. I don't have to call the police. Maybe Mervin's going to think that way too. Yeah, there's someone from the left side to probably do something, so I don't have to do anything. You know, so on and so forth. Maybe somebody do. That was diffused sense of responsibility. Hey, Isaiah, what's up, Dion?
The phones, like that kid at McDonald's.
Now, we're not talking about anymore 1964, obviously, because they didn't have a camera on their phone back then. But there are still some instances happen that we know of that people are sometimes and capturing it for the sake of social media fame, maybe, or entertainment, I don't know. And they really continue to scare us that maybe we're living in this horrible society, maybe. We're surrounded by those people. And that actually applies, the chapter make a point, that actually applies to leisure context as well. And if it does, it could be very, very costly in many ways for practitioners. Think about it. Littering, throwing the garbage away. If you see this in a park, would you throw garbage away? I know you guys you're all awesome, beautiful people, but you know, versus a perfectly clean garbage bin, which do you feel more quote unquote comfortable actually throwing garbage out? Dirty garbage bin, clean garbage bin. Dirty garbage bin, interesting. The theory here, okay, so you kind of disproved me, but the theory here was that with the dirty garbage bin, what does this symbolize is that actually there are many other people in the community and park users who don't care either, or who don't do anything to protect this environment. I could join. You just be part of that conformity, right? Just join that. Now, but more on a more, so that's a more of a passive side of bystander. More active side of bystander issue could be bullying, right? Somebody could be in a problem because of the, being bullied in a youth camp, let's say, or sports. Let's face it, it happens. What are that? Not necessarily practitioners, but do you have a team actually in which some member will come to you as a coach or counselors, whatever, who say, hey, Mr. Holden, there's something happening, and I got to tell you. Or you spend an entire summer or entire season knowing that, And eventually there's a bang news article or social media video going viral that this sports program managed by so on and so forth, or so on and so forth, have a bullying issue. They never did anything. Well, you kind of didn't, maybe you didn't know anything, but can you create actually a team or group of youth who actually come up to you and talk so that you know these youth? Maybe it's an accident in a park and hiking trail. Somebody get into trouble. Do you help it? Or if nobody else is helping, maybe nobody speak up, nobody trying to help, which is going to be a major issue in the park context as well. So are we doomed? Are we living in this society where that's so much indifference exists? Hey, Koden. Now, I want to do something that I don't typically. I want to watch together this person's video, Ken Brown. He's a professor of TED Talk. This one, TED Talk 2. I don't do that typically, watching entire video, but I think there's a lot of great points and evidence shown. So I want you to watch that. I want to watch together, but I don't want you to just passively watch. But there are 3 things I want you to look for at least. First, this Dr. Ken Brown is going to talk about, okay, so that was the original understanding of our bystander effect, that it was diffuse sense of responsibility, okay? Nobody helps. But based on the recent research called a meta-analysis or a meta-analytic study, he shows you graph saying that actually the picture is different depending on the situation. And he's going to show you some contradictory finding. So pick up on that. And also, he's going to say that it wasn't really diffuse sense of responsibility, but newer understanding of why this kind of bystander effect can happen is explanation, idea, phenomena of something. It's explanation of starting with the U, letter U, okay? So that's a key concept that I want you to understand. And then finally, he's going to share 2 pieces of key information because it's a TED Talk. It's ideas worth spreading. So he's going to try to spread those 2 words, 2 concepts. So I want you to listen to that toward the end. And I want you to think about how would you use those 2 pieces of information in your professional life or personal life. Take a picture of this if you need to in terms of what you're looking for, because this is testable, okay? Now I'm going to make some popcorns, sit together with you.
Or see videos where this is described and demonstrated. The fundamental idea behind the bystander effect is as follows. When you are a marker, less likely. Now, the very presence of that idea makes something nervous. Makes them nervous to visit big cities. Makes them nervous to be among others and worry that when they are together in the crowd, a parade, a march. Where did this idea come from? March 13th, 1964, tragedy in New York. D.C. murdered outside her apartment. It was late, but there were certainly people awake. She was screaming while she was attacked. 2 weeks later, the New York Times ran an article saying that 37 who saw the murder did not call it. 37. The number was later adjusted to 38. The idea that someone could be murdered, people stand idly by, became something that social psychologists were very concerned about. They began research. I'd like to talk to you about one of the most seminal studies in this space. This laboratory, looks very much like it, is where in 1968, John Darley did lab. Took subjects, put headphones on them, put them in a room, and asked them to listen to other people. They were made to feel that they were either alone or with 2 other people, or with 5 other people. Then they did something which I think was very traumatic. 60s were the good days for social psychology, when you could do terrible things to people in the service of science. What they did to these experimental subjects was had them listen to someone describing a stroke and calling out for help. What they were interested in was, would the individual with headphones on, alone in a room, yell out for help, bang on the door, open the door, break the bounds of the experiment and say, this person needs help, and I want to do it. To share the results of that study with you. In a 6-minute period following the onset of the individual describing stroke symptoms, when a person was made to feel alone, they were the only one hearing over 80% help within a 6-minute time. When they thought there were more people present, that was reduced to over 60%. In the belief that there were 5 other people present, less than half. They also looked at the time to help. You see a very similar effect. The pattern looks different, but as I will explain, the idea is simple. When you're alone, you're more quick to help if you provide help. You see the average time to provide assistance was less than a minute, 50 seconds. But with 2 people present, that time went up. With 5 people present, almost 3 minutes on average equal person one help. This was described at the time as being a result of diffusion of responsibility. That in the presence of other people, don't feel a responsibility to step up, intervene, and help. In the years since then, there have been many replications, studies using different types of activities, using different types of emergencies. If you go online, you can find any number of videos, exposés, even student projects where a student will lay face down on the floor in a high school hallway. People seem to walk right by. In this video, you see a gentleman crouched down, saying, "I need help, I'm in pain." People walk by. This is the bystander. Here's the problem. Social psychology does a fantastic job of letting us know when things might happen, and if they are indeed at all possible. But going back actually to that first scenario in 1964, Kinesiology, we actually find Rachel Manning of her colleagues, the story wasn't as clean. When Manning and her colleagues reviewed the police records, when they looked at what really happened that night using court documents, they discovered that the New York Times actually, surprisingly perhaps to some of us, others maybe, misled us. There actually were people who called the police. There were people who screamed and yelled out their window. This was not the story of the big city run amok and people not caring that some thought it was. A few years later, Peter Fisher and his colleagues did a meta-analytics synthesis. This is a combination of all the published research on the bystander. And they concluded the presence of bystanders does reduce helping responses. So it is a real phenomenon. But when you dig into the data, you dig into studies, you realize that the picture is not as bleak. Nowhere near as bleak as conventionally assumed. In fact, there is one little thing that makes a huge difference. Let me share some of their results. In this particular study, they accumulated across multiple studies and were able to give you an estimate of how big is the effect. How big is the effect of when more people are present, you don't help. And the large negative effect you see here occurred across multiple studies when there were bystanders present who were instructed to be passive. This is in fact what happened in the Darley and Latney study, where the individual who was there as an experimenter told the others were bystanders, not the same. So there was considerable amount of uncertainty with the experimental participant. There are other people talking about speaking of. When there is a passive bystander, this effect has occurred. What happens when you instruct one person to be active, step up? Results are completely reversed. We go from having a bystander effect where people are less likely to help, to having what could be called a helper effect, where in the presence of more people, as long as one person actively helps, people are more likely to jump, be in a position to be perfect. Become more likely to help. This data suggests that it can't be diffusion of responsibility as the primary explanation for bystander effect. If that's the case, then when one person helps, you absolve the responsibility, you should walk away. Instead, the explanation is one of uncertainty.
You get that?
One helps. We wonder. That's the right thing. Stand on. To be passive. To let this thing.
Did you get it? By the way, it was one of the explanation was one of uncertainty. Yes. Let's keep going.
Tragedy happens. One person helps. We're there, we're ready. We actually join with others to help. There's additional research that says, in particular, if you go beyond one person, you get a small group of people who amongst a sea of others, and they engage in a particular behavior, whether it's gazing up at the window or doing a dance, others more likely to act. It's quite different than the bystander. But it's effectively the opposite. So, armed with a more realistic and more current understanding of the bystander effects, there are two things that you can do with this knowledge. Let me begin with the most basic, although maybe this is the most important for you, and that's as follows. What do you do if you're in a crowd? Bob Cialdini, who is a former professor at Arizona State University, by the best-selling book on Power and Influence, does a really nice job of giving very specific advice. And it's advice that I think you can use. It's an idea that is certainly worth spreading. When you need help, your job is not to get anyone to help. Your job is to get one person to help. And if you can get one person to help, other people will follow. Now, how do you do that? If you're in the audience and you know someone's name, you can call that person down. In another situation, you may not know, and you may literally have to find a way to single someone out. So, for example, in an audience like this, it would be very difficult, I think, to convince someone to come up and be on camera and be on stage. But if I said, I need help, and I pointed, and I said, ma'am, you have white jacket on the sides with pattern. I need you to come. I need your help. Please, I see your shoes with white laces. Come on, please come right here. I need your help. Actually, I just need you to flip my slide. So hold those if you can. And then when you're ready, I'll tell you, and you will flip by pushing that button. Are you happy to be up here? Yes. She says, I'm super happy. If you want help, and you can go ahead and put the button to go forward. Perfect. Now you know how to get help in a crowd. All you need is one person. Were I to call someone else up now, people would be more willing and likely to come. So we can use this in all aspects of our life. We can use it to get help in a crowd. We can use it to get help as a volunteer. If you're running an office, if you need someone to volunteer, don't just ask anyone. Get one person, and then other people will follow. So that's the first piece of advice. The first idea we're spreading with your new knowledge of the bystander effect. It says that all you really need is one person, and others will follow. Next slide. Margaret Mead, who is perhaps the United States' most famous cultural anthropologist, said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens will turn the first time I heard this quote, it made me really tired. Because I imagine small groups of people working late at night, trying to change the world. That's a lot of work for small groups of people to do. Whether you're building bridges in Peru, whether you're working with your pastor and a small group of committed citizens within your church to help a hurting community, it's a lot for a small group of people to do. But if we take what we know about the bystander effect seriously, I think we understand the idea that it's not really about that small group getting everything done. It's about that small group becoming the catalyst for others following. But to the next slide. If we think about what happened in the 60s with Martin Luther King, we have a tendency to elevate the Reverend Martin Luther King and say, look what he did. And the reality is that he did not do it alone. He had groups of people that he locked hands with and arms with, and they marched together. And when they marched, others followed. More recently, we've seen in Tunisia, the revolution, perhaps the most successful example of an Arab Spring revolution, where we now have a budding democracy. Not one person, but small groups of young people, like the college students in this room, came together and decided that they would go to the streets and they would protest against their government. And when small groups of young people went to the streets, others followed. There was a movement born from the commitment of small groups of people, and there were others following. I remember in my own life thinking a little bit about how nervous, how uncertain we are to reach out and help. I was in an airport once. The guy next to me falling asleep. He looked far different than me in so many ways. He was wearing ratty jeans and he was unshaven, and I was in my suit. We were sitting next to each other, and he had fallen asleep hard. He was out. And our plane was boarding. I assumed he would wake up. I kept hoping he would wake up. And for me, this was not diffusion of responsibility. I felt some sense of obligation, responsibility, but there was massive uncertainty in my case. Would I wake him up and maybe make him mad? What if this is not his flight? I started to walk away. I stopped. I turned. And I decided that I needed to face the uncertainty to do something. And as silly as it sounds, it's nervous. And I reached out and I touched his shoulder. I said, sir, plane's getting ready to leave. He opened his eyes and I was still uncertain and I was nervous. He looked up at me and said, thank you so much. I was on a spiritual retreat. I was up all night praying. And I just couldn't stay awake. We boarded the flight together, shoulder to shoulder, and I thought, this is just one of those little things. But I was afraid. I was uncertain. How many other times would we be uncertain? Are we afraid for things that are more important, more worrisome, more troubling than tapping someone on the shoulder? I committed that day to think, I need to stop sitting in uncertainty, and I need to do something. And knowing that the gentleman that I woke up that day had been praying for 24 hours, I did him a good favor. I think I've got some in now with God that I'll use as best I can over the next few weeks. I have a question for you, and I'm going to end on this. You can go ahead and click. Now that you know that the bystander effect is not what is in your textbooks, now that you know that you're not in danger in a crowd, or that a parade or a march is a place where knows what's going to happen. Now that you know that other people will follow, if you get a group of people who are committed, excited, work hard, I want to know, where are you going to lead others to change the world, to do service? What are you going to do to make a difference?
It kind of becomes a nice theater, this room. I kind of like it. All right, so you got all the questions that I had, the contradictory finding that he actually observed in the newer studies. What was it? Yes, the newer study confirmed that if everybody is instructed, everybody but the one person, quote unquote, the real participant is instructed, hey, everybody, these experiments don't help Shin. And then let's say Deanne is the experiment participant, and she's in a situation whether she has to decide basically whether she's going to help me or not. Most likely she is not going to help me. Not. But if one person, let's say Krista, was asked also, hey, Krista, but you're gonna actually step up. Then she does, right? I fall now. Krista is like, Shin, are you okay? Everybody else is like, Deanne will, more likely or less likely? More likely to help me too, join the Krista. It's just one person that it takes. It wasn't really this sense of the diffusion of responsibility. It was the uncertainty because, well, quote unquote, social psychologists created. They're good at creating this weird situation in their own lab, you know? That's like, and that doesn't happen. If somebody falls, people are gonna like, are you okay? Like, you know, that's the normal reaction, right? But they're all instructed, like, just don't even look at him. It's weird. But in that situation, yes, it creates a massive uncertainty. And like, am I doing the right thing? Am I the only quote unquote weird one? That stops people from helping out. And the last two pieces of message that he wanted to give away, what were they? One, what was it? And I should probably point out someone because, well, Dr. Brown said, Jordan, you want to help me out? What was one of the messages that he wanted to provide with us? Face uncertainty, right? And so that's great one, thank you. So that relates to actually more of a second part of the message that I would probably call be the one, the first one to step in. Face uncertainty, be the one to help other or do the work, because then most likely other will follow. The research shows that actually you can flip that bystander effect into the positive side, like we saw the graph. The other message was, if you ever in a situation where you're in a trip to a big city where you don't know, right, first time, and you need help, what do you have to do? He said, point someone, just like, hello, I need your help, not I need help. I need your help. Can you help me? You. And that's sometimes things get bigger and bigger, like snowball, right? And I didn't realize how fitting this was in relation to what's happening on a campus today with the protests. He was mentioning some of the protests, social movements as well, like Martin Luther King Jr., MLK. There's sometimes it's that next person, Isaiah. It's very difficult. It's like a maze. Yeah, and I'm getting stopped by security people, so I needed some little thing to like, you know, even though like he was okay. So sorry, quick side note, the security person because I work in that exact building, they were asking like, would you work here? Are you a student? And I'm like, are you gonna stop me if I were students? Like, is that how it works now? So I was just concerned about that because like, probably you shouldn't be stopping students. If you need to come to my office today, I will guide you from the door. So don't worry about that. Anyway, so the last piece. So I want you to think about whether it's the personal life, if you're facing some social problem, community problems, personal problem, family problem, or it's the professional industry problem, right? Some of the issues that we talked about. For example, bullying. You want to work with the youth next, in the future. Great. Bullying is a major issue. How can you, it could happen no matter how good you are, right? But then how can you actually, knowing this information, how can you create a culture in which that first person will step up, try to help, try to reach out to you, rather than quote unquote the old passive bystander? Make sense? How would we teach them? What kind of roles policy can you make? What would be the slogan in your, camp or sports team, so on and so forth? I want you to think about that. Have one idea, all right? If you have a great idea, write it down right now. I could ask this. I could really ask this. Or if you don't have idea just yet, talk to someone else. Get others' idea or just share the ideas, discuss one. I'll give you like 3 minutes. That means we all can be a MLK if we try, which is cool. What do you think?
Question again?
So either whatever the problem, whether a professional problem or let's say the professional problem.
Okay.
You're gonna work on a sports. You're gonna be a coach, manager of the sports team and league.
Okay.
You're gonna create a culture of the team and league in such a way that if any issue happens, like for example, bullying, somebody's bullying other people, people will either help and intervene or come out to you as a professional that, hey, coach, this is happening.
Well, I feel like that's why you have captains.
The captains. What if the captain was the bully? And
Uh,
that's not all fault. I mean, they shouldn't be
assistant
captain, assistant captain. So we're,
So you wouldn't.
but based on what we learned though, we have a captain, we have an assistant captain, but they're not gonna probably help make an action if everybody else is not helping, right? Doesn't matter if that person is a captain or not.
They should.
They should, I know, I agree.
I mean, that's
Like,
the
what
whole
would
point.
you tell them?
Yeah, well, what we tell
Credit
them,
skills stuff,
what kind of,
that's
yeah,
what
what kind of exercise you have day to day.
to make it so- Okay.
Because what's happening is that there's gonna be one person, let's say bullied, and that person will need someone who they can reach out to, talk to, trust, and just say, hey, Colton, I need your help. Eric, I need your help. Justin, I need your help. How we make that actually relationship.
Being open. I guess when just tell them.
The open culture is very important.
Right, like,
Yeah.
I don't matter. At least that's what I do for my.
And also, okay, if it's a team, that can be a problem a little bit too, because then it becomes anybody potentially. The guy, the Dr. Brown was saying that we shouldn't be saying that I need anybody's help, like any help. I need your help. So how can you make it not less about the entire team, but like maybe more of a, so like smaller groups in it, the buddies, if you will.
Like, what would you tell them?
Mm-hmm.
Like this. As a team, they're in like groups. This way.
Yeah, we can tell them to do certain things, or we can create some sort of quote unquote system that, hey, this is what we're gonna do,
When something happens. like,
or even before from the very beginning of each team season, this is what we do, just in case anything happens. Yeah. Any ideas? 3 minutes. Does this help? Is this difficult? Okay, let's hear. Any ideas so far? Tell me what are the situation you're talking about and what might be their potential solution. Well, not solution, but what can we do? Curtis.
For professional life, it's vastly different.
Mhm.
Like, you have to deal with like emergencies
Mhm.
and people getting hurt. And at our facility, we're always taught to be like helpful and try and just go up to everyone you need, like you think needs help and ask them if they need help. And also we have training, especially in first aid and stuff, to assist in medical emergencies. So
Right.
you can always be the first one to help. And we always tell them, like, if you can't handle the situation or it's too stressful, as soon as you make that first step, other people are going to join and you can always pass off responsibility. You don't have to be the only one. So just react and think later. It's just just be helpful.
React and think later. Just jump in, to be the first person. And of course, thank you, Curtis. And all the stuff, the technical stuff, the knowing that first aid, CPU skills in one, all the stuff that the equipment that exists that you can pull, that's all important, but also that culture of it, right? Just be the first person, jump in. We're gonna, then other people will follow. If you actually know that's the culture at that facility organization, maybe most likely the sense of uncertainty will be reduced. Oh, something happened. What are people who just jump in? Other will follow. I'll trust that other actually, I'm certain that other people will follow. My manager will come in, my colleagues will come in, so it's gonna be okay. Creating that culture by training, seminars, or even like simple messages everywhere, can be very helpful too. Anything else?
I work for the city that I did it. I guess like a quiz online. I don't know if you call it a quiz, but like these questions, so you fill them out in the privacy of your home on the computer, or if you're at work. Like, are you happy with your work? Are you having trouble with anything? Like, and then if you were to respond something, then your supervisor would ask you more questions, look into it. And then they come back and they have a report. And let's say if somebody was experiencing racism, that's come up. So they have reported that and said,
Right.
okay, we need to be better.
Yeah.
So asking the person,
Asking the people.
sort of survey, I guess. you could say.
Right, survey. I can see that could be helpful too. I'm trying to connect to the two messages. The one that one person help, the other follow, be the first person, or try to get one person. Well, sometimes it's a one way to actually, anonymous survey is a good way to reach out when it comes to sensitive topics, definitely. Right. And what's important though, that the report and reaction to it too. If you complete the survey and nothing happens, or you feel that there's nothing, then the uncertainty increases. Oh, this organization doesn't care. They do it just for the sake of performance, right? There's a certain issue that if, for example, let's say this is a group of youth camp, for example, right? Interesting. Trying to help, trying to do something together. And if some issue happened, I know you guys are not gonna, but let's hypothetically. And once again, if it's just one person out of 30, 35 is having an issue, there might be, and you don't know anybody is trying to reach out, then you may go like, well, you may feel the uncertainty. Like, am I right to actually try to report this issue? Or can I actually get anybody's help? But maybe making that buddy, if you will, like if it's a sport, if it's a youth counselor, now we're gonna make a buddy, right? So that's the person you're responsible for. You don't have to be responsible for everybody, because based on this research, you don't need everybody's help, right? Or even the majority of help. You just need a one person's help. That person intervene in the situation, or the person come up to quote unquote managers, counselors, coach, or whatever. That would be actually other people might follow, things may get improved considerably. So you have one person, or maybe two person, just in case that person bullies you or something like that, right? One person, two person, small group or buddy system that actually you can trust. You gotta look out for each other. You're the people who look out each other. So you can trust each other. You should be able to trust each other. You look out for each other. If anything happened to the other party, tell me. If anything happened to you, that's the person, as well as me, the manager or counselor or coach, that you can reach out to. And you can say, I need your help, rather than I need somebody's help, because that's not effective. We know that. All right. Got some idea? Good? Could ask. I could ask. All right. So actually, recent research also confirmed these things. This study was very interesting study, important study, because you know what? They looked at the CCTV as in the security camera of the public instance of conflict. So like fighting, riots and whatnot. You know what? Guess what? Actually, it's not about diffusion. When somebody step in, which typically do actually, about 90% of the cases, somebody step in, other people fall. So we're not living in this doomed society. We actually are better than what we think it is, okay? Just know that. And try to actually create that kind of situation in our services as well. I think that's the end of it today. So if you want to be the next person to, just join the protest or see what's happening in there, you can walk with me. I don't know if the group is still there or just move to somewhere different parts of the campus. I don't know the schedule. That's like a 30 minutes, not an entire class ago. So maybe they're still there. Okay, sounds good. Have a good weekend. I will see you next week. Oh, I recorded my coughing.
2019.
You emailed me, right? Slides? You want to see now?